The history of assertiveness training began actually in South Africa with a psychiatrist by the name of Wolff. And Joseph Wolff, decided that for many of his clients, assertiveness training was the treatment to handle their situation in life. Some of his patients, a psychiatrist would say patients, I, as a certified therapeutic counselor, call my people that I interact with, I call them my clients. So he decided that it was therapy. He asserted that you cannot be assertive and feel anxious at the same time. So that's a little bit of the beginnings of assertiveness training that began in the 60s. Then what happened was the women's movement in the 1970s took a real interest in women speaking up for equal rights. And they too began to use assertiveness training. And then many books came out, primarily written particularly for women. And fast forward to today, I haven't heard many people express an interest in assertiveness training, but my guess is because of the Me Too movement and more populations, whether it's the indigenous people or whether it's the Black, who are saying it's time to be heard. But how do we move to being heard? I, as a feminist, started using my assertiveness training in my own home. Regrettably, I also moved out of being passive, but I also had moments of aggressive. So sometimes when we decide we're going to start to get assertive, we actually move too far into aggression. So we'll be exploring that. I also want to clarify that since the last 10 to 15 years, in the world of psychology and therapy, we are more and more mixing the understanding of the nervous system, the fight, the flight, the defend, and the collapse freeze response into our work. And this is old material in some ways that labels people that are aggressive in not a particularly good light, nor the person who behaves or communicates in a passive manner. So in this day and age, we have a little bit more compassion for both ends because they are showing signs of a nervous system that is not well managed. And it's interesting that here in 2021, I am now mapping or helping my clients understand and befriend their nervous system. But let's go back to this particular theory and this particular template for bringing ourselves to the middle ground of being assertive and what that exactly means. And before we start, I want you to get that piece of paper and a pencil, and you're going to assess yourself from 0 to 5 in a number of statements or a number of aspects of being assertive. So you're going to assess your assertiveness skills. So number one, this is one category. So you'll put 1 on your piece of paper and circle it 1, and then I've got 13 statements, and you're going to score yourself 0, you already do it, to 5, it needs some improvement. So here we go. 1, do you say no to unwanted requests? 2, do you say yes to exciting opportunities? 3, do you start conversations? 4, do you join in conversations? 5, do you terminate conversations? You need to go get to a meeting, or you need to do something, or the conversation simply is not of interest to you. 6, do you ask for help? 7, do you cope with criticism? I used to crumble, absolutely crumble, go to the washroom and cry, and then come back after I got myself pieced together. 8, do you share feelings, thoughts, and wants? 9, do you share your wants and desires? 10, do you stay firm with your rights? 11, do you express your personal opinions? 12, do you receive compliments, encouragement, and acknowledgement? Do you just say, thank you? 13, do you use boundary statements, sometimes with a stated consequence if the person doesn't honor your boundary statement? Category number 2, I want you to put 2 on your page and circle it. And here we go. 1, do you listen to seek to understand others? 2, do you ask questions to understand others? 3, do you accept no from others? 4, do you avoid criticizing but better offer feedback? 5, do you acknowledge others' wants and desires? 6, do you acknowledge others' feelings, thoughts, and wants? 7, do you honor others' rights? 8, do you make appropriate apologies when it's the right time and place and you own the, what's the word? You own hurting somebody or causing them some kind of trouble. 9, do you acknowledge others' personal opinions? 10, do you give compliments, give encouragement, and acknowledgement? 11, do you use I statements? That is, owning your own problem. And 12, do you seldom give excuses for owning your own behavior? And category number 3, I want you to put a 3 and circle it, and you've got 6 questions here. Do you accurately define problem ownership? 2, do you negotiate no-lose solutions, meaning you negotiate win-win solutions? 3, are you aware of facial expressions and body language of yourself and others? Have you clued into some of that body language? 4, are you aware of voice volume, tone, and inflection of self and others? And 5, do you express ideas concisely? And 6, do you keep explanations to a minimum? I now invite you to write in the chat room what one of these aspects of assertiveness would you like to know more about? Problem ownership often comes up with children. So if children are having a spat with perhaps with their friend, too often parents jump in with the solution. Or if they're having some kind of issue at school, they may jump in. I know parents that are still doing homework for their youth that's in grade 10 or grade 11 or grade 12. The idea is that you identify whose problem is this. So rather than taking over somebody else's problem, you say, sounds like you have a problem. And then you can say, would you like my help? But too often we make other people's problems our problems. Now, the other way to own the problem is you say, I have been worrying about you doing all this. I haven't been worrying. Let me try that again. I have been worrying that I've been doing too much of your homework and that you are not learning what you need to learn. So I'm owning this problem that I've taken over. So another area that's very, very helpful is when you're working with coworkers or a manager to go and say, before you're worried about it, you say, I'm experiencing a problem and I could use some support and help with it. Also, I'll say to my husband, especially with our couple relationship, he's gone along in life just fine. This is just a made up problem. His underwear is everywhere. He doesn't have a problem with his underwear everywhere. He doesn't have a problem that the underwear is in the laundry basket. I have the problem. So I don't say to him, boy, you're sure sloppy. You sure got a problem with being sloppy. I know I own the problem. I have a problem, honey. Will you help me with it? And the problem is I'm a bit of a neat freak and I would like the laundry basket basket to be used to keep the underwear. So that's problem ownership. It's who owns the problem. And sometimes we both own the problem. So then we can say to our child, our boss, our manager, we're all together. So I see we have a problem, and how can we solve it? What can we do as a group or as a family? You know, if with some of the shortages of food, say in the BC, in British Columbia right now, and the family says, okay, how are we going to manage rationing our food right now? We all have a problem. So that's something just to keep an eye on. And I'm just going to, keeping explanations to a minimum. Oftentimes when we're in the passive position, we will go on and on explaining ourselves. Also in the passive position is tending to take on other people's problems when it's not ours. I have experienced women who walk in the room and apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. They apologize for walking into a room. And that is owning a problem that they don't need to own. So if you have a habit of doing that, and if you have a habit of giving long explanations, probably working on sitting in the passive position is one you want to explore. What else I'm seeing? I'm just taking a look here at the chat box to see how far can you assert when you have to enforce rules. That's when somebody violates your rights, by the way. I'll give you examples of that in a couple minutes. Express ideas concisely. That takes practice. And if you're doing explanations to extreme, you're probably in the passive position, kind of getting the other person wanting to be gentle with you. Okay, start conversations. Oh, I've got a very good blog on that. The first step is to say, hi, how are you? Or excuse me, I just overheard what you were talking about and I'd love to join in the conversation. Body language. Yeah, body language is a bit tricky. I have somebody that you trust that will give you some information. We all have a certain distance that we're comfortable with. We all have an energy around us, and we can feel when people get too far or too close. Often in my couples counseling, I'm often negotiating. People get so disconnected that they're like far, far away. There's disconnection. So there's a whole area of the nervous system that feels disconnected and then connected. When and where do we feel connected, and when do we feel disconnected, and when do we feel trapped with one another, caught by one another? Enmeshed is a word that's often used, right? So you want to just observe other people and the distance that they're comfortable in. Often sitting at a table is a nice space for people to feel really safe. They're sitting, that's grounded, and they can have a conversation. And voice, I have hearing issues. I'm wearing hearing aids. And so my husband will sometimes go like this. If you've got somebody who can kind of give you a signal when your voice is, the volume's getting higher, it also may be a signal that your nervous system is about to be triggered into the agitated defend fight state. And no is very common for women to struggle to say no. We have been socialized for connection, and the word no is a disconnection. Do you get that? I hope you did. So, you know, we're yes, 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 right? Just think of being intimate, and then we start saying no, 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 no. It's a disconnection, and women tend to be more hardwired than males. We're all hardwired for connection, for human connection. It is the #1 healing modality. So it's hard for us. So I had a friend teach me, she said it to me one day when I asked for a favor. She said, Patricia, it's not good for me to say yes. And that was such a comfort to me. There's many ways to say no. And sometimes we have to have some distance to collect ourselves, for some alone time, for some introspection, or our plate is just too full and we can't put another to-do on the list. So now let's take a look at what we would call passive. I just want you to notice some of these features of being passive. Now, there is a body language of passive. My dad had an anger management issue, and I, all my life, have struggled with posture. I started to shrink like this so that I would not look at him eye to eye, because it was too scary for me to look at him eye to eye. And I only realized that later in life in therapy, that I was shrinking down like a turtle curled into itself to stay safe. So often when we're passive, we're not feeling safe in our environment. And we will give up our relationship with ourselves, our wants, our desires, our needs. We're like little mice squeaking in the arena. We have, when we're in a passive state, and this is also called the give up or dorsal nervous state. It's as if we don't have rights. It's like you have all the rights, I have none. It's like I say to myself, I'm not okay, and you and everybody else is okay. I don't express what I want. I don't express my feelings. I might martyr, oh, it's all right, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it. Submit to the wishes of others, and often defer to others. The intention often is to create a sense of safety, to receive some approval or praise, to be liked, to be included. Our emotional state is low self-esteem, often feel helpless, anxious, sometimes used. I keep giving and giving, I don't get anything back, feeling hopeless, frustrated, sometimes judged. Resentment can build, feeling disconnected. And I had some slides here to go to each one. This was the belief and the behavior I described, and the emotional state I'm now describing, and definitely disconnected and longing for connection. And the goals are to avoid conflict at all costs, because I don't have a sense of being able to stay in my own personal power, and to receive appreciation, connection, approval from others. And how do others feel? Others may feel frustrated. Like my husband, when we first got married, it was whatever you want, my dear, whatever you want, my dear, whatever you want, my dear. And because of my history with my family, I chose a guy the opposite. Do you see that? The opposite. So he was playing often the passive role, whatever you want, whatever you want. And I eventually got really frustrated with him and angry and said, well, who are you? And sometimes I felt pity for him. Sometimes I felt guilty that I was using him, and I was getting everything I wanted, and there was nothing for him. And I definitely felt disconnected from him. Like I said, who are you? That took me, I'm embarrassed to say it took me between 5 and 10 years to start to clue into his rights. Whoops, here we go. Oh, and the result is avoids confrontation, being blamed, risk of approval, or being seen as wrong and disconnected. Who's gonna be brave here and say, yeah, I tend to think, speak, and act in a passive space?
Ms. Patricia, 6 people have raised their hands. So 7, 8, like you've got really brave people in this circle of 45 people.
Very brave to say yes. I have this tendency. We want to live in the assertive state. And then when I do the mapping of the nervous system, I call it the awesome state. That's where we want to be. We want to spend our time and feel as if in the awesome state or the assertive state is our home. And sometimes we can feel ourselves slipping into either the passive state or the aggressive state. Now, oftentimes, which is what happened to me, passive And then I get an opportunity to have some power and control, and I become aggressive, right? I wasn't aggressive outside of the home. I was just aggressive inside the home. And I ended up with an anger management issue for a number of years. Here I go with the part that I find that my years of and moments of being aggressive are more embarrassing than the ones of being passive, as they tend to hurt others more deeply. So the belief here is that my rights and wants are, you know, they're important. I have all the rights. Yeah. Finally, I get to run the house the way I want. Finally, you know, so it was like my way. And the kids are going to go to bed this time, and you're going to read them a bed story. I wasn't honoring my husband's rights for a long time. And I'm okay, and you're not. That was the underlying belief of that state. But I want you all to know that underneath both of these are wounded parts of us. And then the behaviors, we tend to express our wants, thoughts, feelings at the expense of others and in a demanding way. It's kind of like, yes, this is what we're going to do, and you better shape up. Sometimes we're in this state, we can be dishonest because we're in a very defended, agitated state. We can violate other people's rights. We might even put them down. We might even blame them for what's going on. We might blame them for our problems. Like I remember going to a therapist and saying I was going to take a break from my husband because he wasn't initiating romance. And she said, and I said, our marriage is just boring. And she said to me, so how are you boring your marriage? And I took ownership and I said, right, I feel bored in my marriage. And I started to serve him breakfast in an apron. I picked him up at the airport, dressed provocatively. I did a whole lot of stunts, and I put juice back into our relationship by not blaming him, but taking ownership. Okay, and what's the intention of the person who steps into that aggressive role? To demonstrate and control and protect self at all costs. There's basically underneath that is the emotional state of, again, low self-esteem, doubting self, letting the nervous system take over, needing to have power because maybe you didn't have it all your life and now you're scared of losing it again, getting angry that you're not getting what you want, agitated, and at the core, really feeling helpless and again, disconnected. And notice that people tend to partner up. Two aggressive people will end up in jail because they're battering one another. And two people that are passive, nobody's initiating anything. And that kind of peters out. And what are the goals of the aggressive state? I'm finally in my life, I'm going to get what I want. Do you understand? I'm going to have the house I want. I'm going to have the children I want, right? I'm going to have the love I want. I'm going to have the job I want, right? And yeah, so I'm going to get what I want that I didn't get growing up. And how do others feel? Afraid. Yeah. So my hubby, I was better with my kids, but my hubby really didn't share how he felt and what he thought. But later on, we've actually gone to marriage enhancement weekends once a year at the Rocky Mountain Couples Retreat. We have attended over 30 years. We have sure made up for him in the passive role and me in the aggressive role. But yeah, feelings of how others feel. Yeah, scared of me and avoid me and disconnected. And the result, short term, I feel in control. I get other people's compliance, particularly my husband, and oftentimes you'll target somebody that will be passive. If you live mostly in aggressive, you will probably pair up with somebody who is willing to be passive. Relationships tend to be conflicted, painful, and sometimes destroyed. I'm lucky that he hung in there with me, and definitely disconnected. Now, before I go much further, on your piece of paper, I would like you to write the name of somebody with whom you would like to be assertive, where you would like to be assertive, make an assertive statement, and when. With whom, where, and when. I want you to picture this in the future. You're going to take your next interaction with this person, and you're going to take some tools from our time together. Now, I want to put a little caveat in here. And that is that if you don't have influence with this person or a relatively healthy relationship, this is not a good place to practice. So maybe you want to choose somebody that you really haven't said what you wanted, what you desired, and you have been giving up, or you've been taking over, such as my example with my husband. Years ago, I had an amazing, I've had 5 amazing therapists in my life. It's just been such a blessing. And one of them, Clark Reed, said, do not enter a workplace, or let's say in-laws home, and risk being a different person, because you've been playing a role in a, like as if you've been playing a role in a play for years and years and years. Don't expect anybody to thank you for getting healthy and assertive. So you want to judge where the places are that are appropriate for you and support you in your growth to do that. Okay, I don't want you. I got busy doing assertiveness training, and I remember the day I decided to be assertive with my father, and he was sawing up a piece of furniture that my mother had saved in the garage to refinish. And she was standing at the kitchen window, my passive mother. I was pregnant. I was 30 years old, and I'd taken some assertiveness training. And my dad was outside cutting this thing up, and she's standing there crying and said, oh, I was going to have that in the living room. And I said, oh, don't say something. Oh, no, she said. I said, well, I will. So I went out and I said, hey, Dad, did you know? I didn't even get, did you know? And he threw a hammer at me. Now, it didn't hit me or anything, but that was dangerous for me to do. So I triggered his nervous system. I have a lot more compassion now that I know what's going on for him. In his life, he had a very, very agitated nervous system. He served in the Second World War, and he was always, eyes in the back of his head, always ready to defend, right? Let's go with assertiveness. Oh, this is, I'm okay, you're okay. You have rights, I have rights. Let's talk about it. Let's be together. We express our wants, our feelings. We listen, we hear. It's give, it's receive. And let me just see, I'm getting behind myself. That's belief. The behavior is we give, we receive, we're willing to influence. We have clear boundaries. We honor other people's boundaries. Intention is to communicate clearly and to have healthy connection. Over and over again, connection. We are so wired for safety and growth with connection. Our emotional state, we feel grounded, we feel curious, we're resilient, we're compassionate. We're compassionate ourselves, we're compassionate to others. We feel our own heart, we can connect to other hearts. We might not see eye to eye, but we feel heart to heart. And our goals are to have a win-win relationship, to be connected, to be healthy with one another, to do the dance. And the result, oh, how did others feel? Did we not get there? I must have messed up that little one. Okay. And others feel trusted, trusting, respected. They feel connected to us, heard, seen, understood. And the result, of course, is confidence in self, knowing that creating a sense of safety in our own world, healthy connections, and we receive and give influence. And I didn't ask, my apology, I didn't ask who was brave enough to say they tend to sit in aggressiveness, but I'm not going to do that because there can be a fair bit of shame to that. All right, this was very exciting for me to find this on the internet when I was doing a little bit of research, that there's actually, there was a news release that the northwest of the US had a passive aggressive crows, and they acted like nice, and then they would attack. So passive aggressive is, you may have a passive aggressive auntie, or you may have run into people. They act nice, but they do little subtle messages that kind of hit your heart, and you wonder what just happened. And it's kind of like sneaky. They avoid direct confrontation if they don't like what you're doing. They might say they'll be somewhere to help you, and then they turn up late. They kind of pout, and the auntie says, "Don't worry about me. I'll just die with nobody coming to ever visit me." They played victim a fair bit. Yeah, so it's called passive aggressive. The anger is underneath. So now we're moving to rights, and this is what assertiveness protects. It protects your rights. And I give you permission to state your rights. And many people ahead of us and are in the world, Malala. What an amazing young woman at the age of 17, the youngest person to receive the Nobel Peace Prize for speaking up for the right to be educated. So the Taliban shot her in the face for insisting that she go to school and that all girls go to school. I want you to notice the language here. I have the right of education. I have the right to play. I have the right to sing. I have the right to talk. I have the right to go to market. I have the right to speak up. And of course, Nelson Mandela, another Nobel Peace Prize winner, who spent years in South African jail and then became the Prime Minister of South Africa. State what you believe. Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity. It is an act of justice. It is the protection of a fundamental human right, the right to dignity and to decent life. I'll tell you, when I acted passive all my life in my family, I had no sense of my personal power or my dignity. And in those moments when I was aggressive with my husband, and once in a while with the children, again, I had no sense of my own dignity. I didn't know how to do it. And then we have, so exciting, an Indigenous Governor General of Canada, I'll just have to turn this way, Mary Simon. Notice again the language. I'm trying to get out of the way. I believe that in order to have a healthy future, we must reset our thinking to understand that nature contains and creates our climate. And she said, I will strive to build bridges. I will is like a commitment to self and others. This is what we call I messages. I will, I believe. Beautifully done, Ms. Simon. So I'm going to give you some I messages in a minute, but right now I want to give you create a boundary statement. So on your piece of paper, with that person that you would like to assert yourself, this may be a useful formula for you. It's in the session guide. And the first step is to identify the right that's being violated. Now, for those that have the session guide, there's a list of rights. I'll read some of them to you here. You have the right to say yes. You have the right to say no. You have the right to say it depends, or I need time to think about it. You have the right to refuse requests without feeling guilty. You have the right to be listened to and taken seriously. You also have the right to listen to other people and take them seriously. You have the right to be free from fear of emotional, psychological, physical, and sexual abuse. You have the right to express your feelings and opinions, regardless of being different from others. You have the right to personal privacy. You have the right to look after your own needs. You have the right to ask for what you want. And all of these rights are on the condition that you're willing to accept the consequences of asserting your rights and also not to violate other people's rights. So I want you to choose right now, start with the right that's being violated. State the right that you want, just like some of the examples I gave you. I have the right to. What are you giving into or overpowering other people because maybe you're scared you're going to lose that right? What is the right that you have been not clearly defining? And maybe you need some time to think about it. That's okay. The second step is to describe how that right is being violated. I have the right to be spoken to respectfully. That's number one. Number two is name calling me, B that rhymes with itch, is disrespectful. Number three, how do you feel? I feel hurt. I also feel disrespected when you use the B word. 4, consequence. Consequence always has to be some action that you do. So if you say the B word that rhymes with itch, again, I am leaving. And the final one, 5, is if the person says it again or does whatever you put a boundary up, then you need to follow through. Otherwise, it does not mean anything. It means nothing. Yeah, nothing. Okay. I just wanted to share with you this broken record technique was developed in the good old days of assertiveness training. And it's very, very useful if, for example, you are working with a coworker that doesn't hear that you put in your number of hours at work and you're going to go home. And that person keeps pushing and pushing, doesn't take no. There's a very good process or technique to handle when people are violating your no. So this is how it goes. So it's Manisha, ask me if I'll do one of these sessions in December, will you?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah, ask me. Patricia, will you do a session in December? And I want you to keep repeating it.
Patricia, please, will you do a broken record session in December? Patricia,
no,
will you please do a broken record session in December?
Manisha, whoa, Manisha, let me answer.
No, Patricia, please, you have to do a broken record session in December, Patricia.
Okay, no, Manisha, slow down.
Please, Patricia, I am requesting you respectfully to do a broken record session in December.
No, Manisha, I said no. Ask me again.
Please, Patricia, broken record session on December 25th. Does that sound okay, Patricia?
No, it doesn't. No.
Broken record session, please. You know how impactful your teachings are.
Right.
In today's session, you
yes,
have 45 people. A broken record session in December next.
Yeah, I think they get the point. Anyway, the answer is no. Anyway, there we go. Broken record. Once in the store, I said, I want to speak to the manager. Blah, 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 blah. I want to speak to the manager. Blah, 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 blah. I said, I'd like to speak to the manager. Just stick to your guns. Okay. Speak assertively with I, and then we'll sum up here. I. When we're listening or when we're in conversations, we want to make sure that we do a number of tell me about you and let me tell you about me. I. Often when we want to be assertive, we need to use the I. I crossed out I think. Claim what you think, yes, but many of our thoughts are quite dysfunctional. And when I hear people say, I think that, and they go on and on. I say, well, as soon as you speak, I know you're thinking. So if you're speaking, you're thinking. So you don't need, it actually minimizes being assertive when you say, I think. But when somebody says, I believe it, it indicates that you have given thought over and over again, deep thought, before you speak and state your belief. And of course, with all the divisiveness that's going on planet Earth right now, there's many people saying, I believe, and it really kind of shakes what we, what I believe, because there's so many extreme differences going on. It's important for us, especially in safe territory, to say, this is what I believe. If you're just wondering or curious, you can say, I imagine. And I also like saying, I'm curious. That's number 6. I agree and I disagree is just fine. Thank you for sharing. I disagree. And then I might say, are you interested in hearing my perspective? There's no sense talking to brick walls often. Right now, I feel. Feelings come and go. It's sometimes useful to put right now. Other times you can just say, I feel. I want is, please, people want to know what you want, especially the people that love you. They want to know what you want. Christmas is coming up. Make your little list of 5 things that would be special for you to receive. Even if it's I'd love for Christmas to have you give me 3 shoulder and back rubs, 3 different occasions, like make a little coupon for me. I want, I will, and I won't. And I prefer is really a nice term right now during these stressful times. I prefer that we would be free to go back to our Sunday service with my community, but my husband's immune compromised, so we are continuing to watch our Sunday service online. So, but I would really prefer getting all those hugs. And the ministers decided no hugs, but you can come. And I part of my reason for going is getting my touching needs met. Yeah. So you're free to think, speak, act, and don't forget to do the listen. And of course, I always tend to want to offer a little bonus, and that is if you would like help formulating a boundary statement, an I statement, I'll give you a complimentary 30 to 40 minutes. All you need to do is email me at Patricia at Solutions for Resilience. Remember, if you are not for you, who will be? And if you're only for you, what is the point? So assert your longings, your thoughts, your beliefs, your desires, your goals, and listen to others. Win-win. May you be assertive.